God. Oh my God. MJF is the new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Oh my God. I gotta say, guys, I did not expect this to happen. And you know the one thing about this match, when MJF showed up last week at at the New Year's Smash episode of Dynamite, uh, and he came out doing the contract signing between Samoa Joe, Heyman, Adam Page, and Swerve. You know, the fans just started really going crazy for him because we hadn't seen MJF since he had lost against Mark Briscoe, which I believe was either at All Outs or Forbidden Door. Um, I'm not sure which show it was, but you know he had been gone for quite some time. You know, so we hadn't seen him in some months, and so um, it was nice to see him come back. I mean, the crowd. Yep, I just had to look that up just to double check. But yes, it was All Out. That's the last time we saw MJF. But the crowd was loving it. You know, when he came out, and it really brought some light, you know, to the match because we were basically seeing a repeat of what we had already seen at Revolution last year, where Joe made Heyman tap out doing that triple threat. So by MJF getting involved, it really made it unpredictable because before MJF showed up, I was thinking, well, you know, I could see Joe retaining, you know, like he did previously when they faced off in Revolution last year. But when MJF got involved, I was like, this could really go either way. Either Joe could retain or MJF could win the title. And that's exactly what happened. And I thought it was the perfect way to end Worlds End, especially because of MJF reasoning, you know, for signing the contract that he had previously wanted and going for the title. Because he's like, so he can embarrass, you know, Heyman. And then he called Joe Sloppy Joe. He even cut a promo about how Swerve, you know, used to be signed with the WWE when they were both in independent circuit, and how that kind of turned out for him. And so, I mean, it's incredible to think that 2 years ago, this guy lost his world championship to Samoa Joe in the first World's End, which was alluded to during the match. Excellent fatal four-way too, really good fatal four-way. All these guys brought it, and even with the little interference that the ops got involved, it didn't really take away too much from the match because you know they got taken out, and you know they did attack MJF a little bit. They attacked Heyman and Swerve a bit, but they were taken out of the equation by Swerve. He stomped both Hobbs and Shibata, so they were taken out. And then Heyman went at Hook for turning on him at Full Gear, so they were taken out. But yeah, man, it was a really good Fatal 4-Way. I think it was better than last year's Fatal 4-Way where Moxley was the champion, which I'll get to Moxley in a minute because he had a big moment too, ending the reign of Okada. But just, you know, with a show that ended at exactly 12:01, at least on my TV. You know, MJF, you know, at 29 years old, huge moment for him. He's a two-time AEW World Champion, especially with him being still so young and not even hitting the age of 30 yet, winning the title yet again. I think he was 26 during the time that he won his first AEW World Championship 3 years ago at Full Gear back in 2022 when he beat Moxley for it. And he held that title again all the way up until World's End of 2023 when Joe beat him for it. And so it was just a huge moment, you know. He essentially stole the victory from Hangman because Hangman was going to go for the 3 buckshot Larrys on Joe like how he beat him at Wrestle Dream. Then he hit Hangman for a low bro took him out the equation, and then, essentially ended up pinning, Joe to win the title. The Heat Seeker, taking him out to win the title. Because Swerve had a moment where it seemed like he was going to possibly win the belt, where he was going to hit the Swerve stomp on Joe, but then MJF pushed him out. There was a period where Heyman, like I said, looked like he was going to win. You also had the showdown, the encounter between him and Swerve. In my opinion, one of the best rivalries from 2023 up until early 2024. Actually, it officially ended when they had fought at All Out last year. That was one of their last matches. And early this year, they was like they would never team together, but it's just amazing how they kind of, put them together now with all the, heat they've had with one another in their rivalry. But really, good match. Like I said, the ops getting involved didn't take too much from the match. I mean, I would say compared to last year, it was pretty predictable that Moxley was going to retain. This was one of those matches where, I had said from the beginning, I'm like, either MJF is going to win it or Samoa Joe is going to retain. I just was surprised, utterly surprised when I saw that MJF won, but I'm happy for him, man. I mean, this guy, yeah, the crowd chanting, he's our scumbag. No, he's not. They pretty much were cheering for everybody in the match when Joe first came out, but they were mainly behind, MJF, and they were behind Swerve a bit and Hangman at certain points. But MJF getting this win here, it was big, man. It was really good, and he's definitely been missed, since he's been gone the last couple of months. And this was a big moment for him. Heyman won his second World Championship, beating Moxley at All In, held the belt up until Full Gear last month, had a pretty solid reign, as champion. Samoa Joe in his second reign, so you got a couple of guys now that's two-time AEW World Champions. Heyman did it, held it from All In up until won it at All In and lost it at Full Gear. So you're talking about August, September, October, November. So a little under 4 months, he was champion, about 100 and something days. And then Joe only held the title for a month, beating, Heyman for the title, with the help of, in the cage match with Hook screwing Heyman out of the belt, and aligned himself with Joe, who he had previously already been with, but he kind of went his separate ways from him. But but I gotta say, like in this situation, it's definitely worth it. I don't think Joe should have ever won the title back in the first place at this point. And I would say, not to compare the companies, but I do think WWE, should take notes just in terms of like, booking not only younger talent as champion, but also just the fact, because they have yet to have somebody win the title that was born in the 90s, but also the fact that, they have this thing now with a world champion. They like to have these long title reigns with the world champion. And we've seen, 3 times now, the title have changed hands, with Joe beating Heyman after only holding the title about 100 and something days. And then Joe just loses the title to MJF here at World's End after only holding the title for a little under a month. Very unpredictable, but I love it though. I did think though my second option if Joe didn't retain was MJF was winning, because I knew Swerve wasn't winning the title back. Maybe he'll get his day eventually to win it the second time, but I just knew he wasn't winning it back, and I definitely didn't see Heyman winning it back after just losing it. But this was big, man. I mean, a really good show overall. Some moments here that I just didn't really expect. Moxley, beating Okada in the Continental Classic Finals, and really just solidifying himself as a face at this point with the promo he cut after winning the title. I thought for sure that the Death Riders were going to turn on him, even though they lost their match in the mixed nuts match that they had against Tony Storm and Tony Storm and Roger Strong and Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe, which was a really fun match. Like that match was a lot of fun, especially the part where Tony was dancing with Orange Cassidy, and even the parts when Marina Shafir and her husband was going at it, because they kind of referenced it a little bit on commentary when Nigel McGuinness mentioned it, but you had some parts where Marina was actually attacking her husband. When they finally stared down at each other, she went at her husband and he took like one shot at her. And I just, that was just interesting with the dynamic with that, how they were going to do that with them two. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, that match that they had previously lost early in the night, because you also had the point where Claudio actually did the swing on Tony Storm, which was crazy. So there was a lot of moments in that match. They had previously lost. I thought maybe they were going to turn on Moxley here, and it could still happen. I mean, especially because they're clearly still acting as heels. Willa Yuta got a lot of heat in that match. Moxley's been getting cheers as of late, and he really showed it in this match. And Okada, who's been champion for what they say like 600 days or something like that, his reign finally ends. And I kind of should have known, only because of the promo, that was cut backstage, and him saying like he's going to be the first ever back-to-back winner of the Continental Classic, and just the stuff that that was said, because he previously beat Takeshita in the opener, which I did not see that, but he cheated, to win that match, which is going to fuel the tension with that. They really need to get going with that, man, because it's gonna be a fire that's lit in that, between him and Takeshita at this point, with him cheating to beat him in that match. It might even be lit with Kyle Fletcher too, because he lost against Moxley, and that was the second match of the show, which was an excellent match. Moxley and Kyle Fletcher, I mean, they brought it, man. I mean, that match could have went either way, and it was multiple near falls, and it nearly seemed like Kyle Fletcher was going to get the win, but ultimately Moxley choked them out to win and make it to the finals. He was selling his leg. Bryan Danielson, of course, was on commentary during the match and this match. So the reign of Okada finally ends as the international champion, or whatever. His titles are unified, that he's holding currently, that he just dropped to Moxley. So that was a big deal. And so they all came to celebrate with Moxley. Tony Schiavone had an interview with him, so that was a big moment. So two big title changes. Moxley finally ends the reign of Okada, and then MJF wins the AEW World Championship. The AEW Women's Tag Team belts, they retained with Willow Nightingale and with the Babes of Wrath and Harley Cameron. They actually retained against Mercedes, who took the pin in the match, which was very interesting, with Athena, and that was a really good match between them. And she threw a tantrum backstage and actually called out Willow Nightingale next week on a Dynamite, which should be interesting, because it'd be interesting to see if they have her drop the belt to the same person that she beat for that title last year at Double or Nothing, the TBS Championship. I have a strong feeling, with these losses. This is the second pay-per-view in a row she lost. It's also the second pay-per-view Kyle Fletcher lost in a row. But with her losing here, in this tag match and being the one to take the pin, and she just lost two of her titles, won the Red Velvet, the ROH one, and then she lost one of her other titles. It would not surprise me if Willow Nightingale actually pulls out the victory and beat her for the TBS Championship on Dynamite. I could actually see them going that direction, which would be an interesting way to end the year. But she's had a heck of a year, man. I mean, they gave her, I think, Female Wrestler of the Year. They gave Hammer Male Wrestler of the Year. They gave the Rivalry of the Year. Was it to Hangman and Moxley, who they gave the Rivalry of the Year to? But they show like this thing, for all the guys. I think FTR got Tag Team of the Year, which I expected that with them. But yeah, man, I mean that was pretty good. That package that they showed. But it was a good show all over around. I thought Jamie Hayter and Chris Stanlatter in the co-main event before the main event, they really busted out. And I'm glad the fans, were a little bit more, because you could tell at certain points they had got dead. At certain points in the show, certain matches, they didn't react as much. But for this match, even though they didn't react as much at certain parts of the match, like, they were really, they really brought it. And I think when she went against Mercedes at Full Gear, they struggled to get the fans behind them at first, but they had to really fight for it. And in this match, I mean, they tore it down. And Chris Stanlatter retained, her championship. So excellent AEW Women's Championship match between those two. The only match that I thought was good but didn't really need to be on the show was just the Darby Allin one he had with Nick Cage. With Gabe, like I thought that match, it was good, but I just didn't. I think they probably could have cut that from the show, to be honest. But it was still a good match, though. Darby Allin picking up the victory. Am I missing anything? I did not watch the buy-in. I skipped that. I usually don't look at the buy-in, but yeah, man, MJF is the world champion. That's the main thing. That's the title of this video going to be. The main thing I wanted to talk about. Big moment for him, man. I really happy for him. Becoming a two-time AEW World Champion. And like I said, I can't say there was really any match that the right person didn't win here, because the women's tag match, you had them lose, which furthered kind of the fall with Mercedes, and she's had a heck of a year. So even if she was to lose that title, she can always bounce back, because she's had some really good matches throughout the year. So, but you had that, you had, just everything you can expect in the show. So, really good show, and you think about it, Young Bucks wasn't in this show, Kenny Omega wasn't in this show, Ospreay wasn't in this show. There's a lot of certain guys that weren't involved in this show at all, but this show still, is still delivered. The only match that I feel only other match I would probably say that it was good, but, you kind of knew they had no chance of winning was the Bang Bang Game at FTR. It was a good match, but I don't know. I don't know, because I think that match had to follow the Moxley and Kyle Fletcher match. One of those matches had to follow the women's tag of that match, but yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Sign on Rim, that's the Flex. MJF's your new AEW World Champion, and what a show! Pretty good show. Peace. Video.